Headed to SoFi Stadium? Ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express. Just $2 base fare for a round trip from Westfield, Culver City on weekend game days. We're hiring too. Learn more at culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500.
Good afternoon. We are doing it live here, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, getting right down to business. Mottek On Money, live on the air, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com and the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple iTunes, YouTube, all your favorite podcast platforms. Record-shattering week on Wall Street, but a pullback today, and it looks like the AI trade has come under pressure. A lot of the tech names move sharply lower, including again today. In fact, the NASDAQ gave back nearly 400 points at the bell, 23,195, with NVIDIA and other AI names pulling back. The S&P 500 closed lower by 73 points at 6,827. The Dow down 246 points at 48,458. This after the Dow and the S&P 500 hit record highs following the Fed's decision to cut short-term interest rates by a quarter percentage point. For the week, we did see the Dow buck the trend, rising 1% for the week, exactly 1.1% for the week. The S&P 500 gave back about 0.5% for the week, and the NASDAQ down 1.5% for the week. The Russell 2K Small Cap Index, which hit record highs this week, managed to post a gain of 1% for the week. It's been a wild week for the cryptos again, and also in the bond market with Treasury yields rising. Right now we're looking at the yield in the 10-year note back up to 4.19%, and silver hitting another all-time high today, shining brightly, getting close to $65 an ounce. Yep, you heard me. $64.65, I believe, is the high point of the day, pulling back more than $2, though, to $62.08. Gold is up there, too, up nearly $17 today at $4,329 and change, and platinum got a pop today at more than $50 at $1,764 and change. Lululemon shares surging today after the athleisure wear company said the CEO of that company, Calvin McDonald, will exit at the end of next month following a stretch of disappointing sales. We're watching the drama unfold in the Caribbean with the U.S. and Venezuela locking horns. The U.S. seized an oil tanker from Venezuela earlier this week. All this following large-scale U.S. military buildup in the southern Caribbean. President Trump campaigning to oust the Venezuelan leader Maduro, pushing relations to their most volatile in years. We'll take a closer look at all of that. I'll discuss the drama unfolding between the U.S. and Venezuela with what's happening with the price of gas and oil and all of this. I'll be joined later this hour by prominent oil industry analyst John KILDUFF, managing director at Again Capital and CNBC contributor, longtime contributor to this program. John KILDUFF will be back with us here. Speaking of gas prices, what's going on in the car business and the latest on EVs and the new models for 26 and new tracking devices. Keeping track of all that is Lauren Fix, co-host of the Drive Car Show, syndicated radio show, as well as founder of Car Coach Reports. But first, on your money, the markets and the economy and the whole works now. Join me live now, veteran market strategist Brian Perry, BrianPerryInvesting.com, also author of the 25% Cash Machine. Brian, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Okay, Frank. Good Friday to you and your audience here. We certainly had a week defined by tech-weighted selling pressure here, basically concerns over rising uncertainties about CapEx spending sustainability. This is a kind of hitting across the board with all the big hyperscalers. There's just there's some air coming out of the bubble. I don't think the bubble is going to burst, but I do. We are seeing some air come out of the bubble. I heard a good description of what's happening here. We had Ed Yardeni came out today and said something like, "This is like the Game of Thrones, where there was like 7 kingdoms with wide moats, that started the year." And now there's competition. They're all doing deals with each other here, and that just it smacks of the notion that maybe there's going to be some margin pressure here going forward. So that's feeding into the selling pressure here, and a lot of people have big profits here. So there's a lot of pairing off of gains and losses here, and it was just give a good sell first, ask questions later type of a moment when Oracle basically said they're going to have to continue to issue more debt. They've got this big deal with OpenAI, which is $300 billion of it's a contract with OpenAI, and so Oracle's already $108 billion in the hole with fresh debt on the market, and the credit spreads have been widening. So there's this general feeling of the markets are concerned about issuing all this corporate debt in order to build out these data centers here. Whereas Microsoft and Amazon and Google, they have war chests of cash to continue to fund their AI build out. So it's a game of trying to, obviously picking winners and losers here. And during the course of the week of the Mag 7, Apple and Tesla and Google really traded best in class. Valuations are being called into question as well, longer term. So as much as the Wall Street defends this trade, there's just some nervous money running around, and it's the Oracle story got everybody, kind of unwound yesterday or 2 days ago. And then Broadcom came out today and talked about maybe their profit margins, coming in about 100 basis points, which is not enough. And it's not much, but it just got that stock had really made a big run, and people took some profits on that as well. But they beat on the top and bottom line and raised their guidance. So I think that's one of my largest positions, and I think Broadcom is a good buy on this pullback here. Going forward here. Go ahead.
Yep, that is a pullback of down more than 11% today. Broadcom stock, the ticker symbol is AVGO, AVGO, down more than $46 today, back down to $359. And while we're at it, and NVIDIA down nearly 6 today, back to 175 and change. Oracle down nearly 9 at 189 and change. So go ahead and continue, Brian, with that excellent analysis and your thoughts on these names.
Well, I think that this is where the wheat separates from the chaff here, and I think that you just mentioned the three names that I think are the ones that people can focus on here going forward here, and that's certainly Broadcom, Google, Alphabet, and NVIDIA here. Now, NVIDIA, they're still a mile ahead of everybody from an innovation technology standpoint here. So the stock on this pullback here, they're coming out with 2 new chips here next year. Rubin's going to be their most advanced chip, and they were cleared to sell the H100, H200 to China here this last week, which didn't really move the stock at all. But I just still think that there's also concerns about in-house chip making here. Google's talking about making their own chips in-house. Apple's talking about that. So there's this concern there that other these hyperscalers are going to start. Amazon is starting to process their own chips. That the chip makers like an AMD, Advanced Micro Devices, or NVIDIA are going to see a lot of competition here. But NVIDIA is still a mile ahead of the competition from the standpoint of technology and just pricing, margins, the whole thing. So this is where I didn't sell any of it today, and we'll just see how it kind of unwinds here next week. If we've seen the worst, it's kind of a flush today, and I think that's probably what we're going to see is this particular part of the market start to gather itself early next week. And then you hit the Fed. We had the Fed meeting here where they kind of they lowered it by a quarter point, but some traders and analysts are calling this plus this the QE light, which is they announced that they're going to be doing what are called reserve management purchases, $40 billion a month. And they say it's not QE, but it's just meant to stabilize money markets. And so that was taken as kind of like, well, it's almost like, another, a half a quarter point, So the market really liked that piece of news because it sounded like the Fed maybe seeing some data here on a weaker job market than we know about because, we haven't had that kind of information. We'll get that next week. But it's just kind of like it had people thinking that there's something out here that the Fed is concerned about. Other things that are notable this week, Tesla looks like it wants to break out. It's up around 455, 456, and it led all the options trading today, big time on volume. So we're break above 470, and the stock looks like it wants to run. And certainly another big story is Paramount, Skydance making an all cash offer, for Warner Brothers Discovery here at $108 billion, and that's a clean deal. That's probably the way to go if I was a shareholder at Warner Brothers, Frank.
Yeah, so Warner Brothers stock, beneficiary in all this, getting close to $30 a share today, $29.98. We saw Netflix move higher today to 95 and change. That's the split adjusted price, and Paramount Skydance down today, down nearly $4. No, make that down 38 cents here, down 38 cents at $13.74. That one's been under pressure this week, but not quite that dramatically, down 38 cents today at $13.74. What about any of those names in this drama as this plays out? How high do you think Warner Brothers stock is going to go before this is all said and done?
I think that the shareholders are going to take this $30 all cash offer here. There's it's going to go through regulatory a lot easier than it would if it was Netflix, which is considered to be a much more dominant type of a player. And I just think it's a superior offer here. It provides more certain value because it's a clean all cash deal, and again, clear path to regulatory approval without a lot of complex financial backing. So I think this deal is going to happen at this current price, and it'll get done sooner, a lot sooner than if Netflix were to win this offer or to win this deal.
Yeah. All right, things are heating up between the U.S. And Venezuela with possible ground action starting. We're watching the headlines here and about to speak to John KILDUFF on the oil front, but some signals out of the White House indicate things could be heating up this weekend. What about oil names here and the possibility of some big news this weekend?
There's a couple ways to play this, Frank. One of them is I own the U.S. Aerospace and Defense iShares. The symbol's ITA. That's Ivan Tango Alpha. That's all the big heavyweight names and some of the upstart drone makers and things like that. So take a look at that. That had a nice week. It was trading around 200 and closed at 210. And then in the oil area here, it's a lot of the oil services companies are acting much better than the majors. So Baker Hughes is breaking out to a new high, and certainly I'm looking at Transocean here. Symbols RIG. It's RIG. That's big, heavy insider buying in that particular stock today. This past week, trades. It's a cheap one. It's like $4.20. So there's for those that are looking for a name that's really cheaply priced, and they've got one of the most modern offshore fleets in the world. So they're deep water. So as this starts to heat up here in Venezuela, tough to say how to play that from an oil standpoint because they have heavy crude there, and they're these shadow VSO. They're very large crude carriers. They're that's a shadow fleet, and that oil is going to Iran and going to Russia and things that go primarily to Iran and other places to be refined in Russia and India. So there's a blockade that's taking place now, and I think it's also an airspace blockade going on as well. So you're right, this is heating up, and I'm sure you got some political commentary that's going to basically lay this out further on the show.
What about the precious metals and all this? Silver, we forgot about silver so far here with the record high hit today of 64.65, I believe was the all-time high, then pulling back sharply down more than 2 to 62 and change. What about this epic move we've seen in silver recently, blowing past 50, then blowing past 60, and now getting close to $65 an ounce today? Gold also having a good day, back to around 4,330 or so, and platinum has popped to around 1,764.
Yeah, you better secure your catalytic converters where that platinum. It tends to be a larger amount of thefts when platinum gets up to these levels. With the silver market here, I took a trade on silver here because it just, to me, was a huge catch-up trade to gold, and it certainly has industrial application, but it's technically extremely overbought short term. So I'm looking for hopefully the silver to pull back to the 55 range here, just on technical selling and momentum selling, and then try to buy that on that pullback here. As for gold, I'm not selling at all because that's still central banks are backing up the truck every day to buy gold for their reserves here. Basically, lower interest rates around here in the U.S. and around the world are certainly putting pressure on fiat currencies here. So that's the number one hedge in the world, is to own gold if your currency is under pressure here. The dollar is hitting some lower ends of the range here currently. So that, and also the gold miners, the GDX is I think that's making new all-time highs as well here this week. So that's a great combination here. The IAU, which is your iShares gold shares, or GLD is another one that people play, and then also the GDX. So you can have a kind of a 1-2 punch in this particular gold trade. And that's a have and hold. That's not, you can trade some, which people do, but this is definitely something where you want to not be out of that market.
Yep. We're going to have to hit another important story here that's come up. President Trump expected to issue an executive order as soon as Monday that would allow for the reclassification of marijuana. According to CNBC, such a move would allow cannabis companies to fall under different tax regulations and encourage investment. What's your reaction to that, and how would you play it if, in fact, finally the banking and other big issues that have strangled the legal cannabis business are finally straightened out?
Well, that's a tough one. Frank, that has been such a hyper speculative trade all these years. I think the one stock that I think that people may want to take a look at in here would be Tilray Brands, TLRY. That seems to be traded 83 million shares today. Just huge volume on this particular story here. It was closed at like 8 and change yesterday, and then closed today up, up around 12, 12 and change, up 44%. But the stock has been as high as 24. So it's one of these. This is one of those huge short squeezes going on, and that's happening across the board with all these particular stocks. But if people want to make this trade into their portfolio here, I'd say Tilray is the one that you're going to get the most fund manager participation with, and that's kind of where you want to be, is where some professional money is. Yeah.
All right. What at this point? Any specific places, Brian Perry, where you are putting money now into or taking off the table?
Well, a couple things here. I think Bitcoin is in a tight range here, but if it holds 88 to 90 here, then I think people can start to dabble back in Bitcoin here. Ethereum, same thing. They're at 3,100 here. That's holding that 3,000 level here. That looks okay. Zcash had a biggest winner on for the altcoins here. Was up 23% on the week here, and that's a privacy coin here. It's something that people may so you can have opaque trades, not know who's sending it and where it's going. So that's interesting. But put it on. I bought some GE aerospace here this week. I had a big day today, up 4%. Ventus, which is the second largest assisted nursing home and assisted living operator. VTR is the symbol there. And I've been buying some SanDisk here, which is, they sell memory to all the data centers here. The stock got hit today pretty good, but it was coming off the high here. So SNDK, I think, is a good trade for people that want to be in what I call, the picks and shovels part of the data center area. Coming off, I took that Planet Labs trade. We're talking about that here. The space stocks had a really good week, and Planet Labs made a 50% move, and I, had a position there, so I took that off. And then I sold half my JP Morgan when the company announced that their expenses were going to be $105 billion instead of $100 billion. It kind of surprised the street that their expense ratios are going to be up for the current quarter. The stock has made a really good run here this past year. So sometimes it's good just to take half your position off and reallocate.
All right, and the other big news for space fans, SpaceX, a lot of buzz about a possible IPO next year. What are your thoughts on that? And you noted that some of the space-related stocks have already rallied.
Well, it's a huge unicorn. It's like any of these big companies that come out, they're already, very highly valued, and it's going to be a wildly popular IPO for sure. Rocket Labs is another one, RKLB. That's been the competitor of SpaceX, and it's been a huge winner for people here. The stock was, at 40, and just 10 days ago today it closed up at 61 and change. So this is coming here, and I launched a space race portfolio here like 3 weeks ago, and this is just a fascinating time. I think it's really the big theme of that's going to start to kind of take some of that AI enthusiasm and go into the space race story here, because the total addressable market is just through the roof right now, and you've got ASTS Spacemobile, which is very popular with people here. You got Leidos, you got L3 Harris, you've got RTX Corp, used to be Raytheon, and then you've got this Planet Labs and a couple other low orbit type plays. So I just think Archer, and Joby, those are all names here that are starting to. And it's not that many names. It's about a dozen names that trade in this space, so it's concentrated. And I think that gives people a chance here. There's another new name that came out called Gemini. So people need to maybe take a look at that as well here. It's a very, very good time to be, making your short list and doing some due diligence on these names here, because I think that they're under-owned and they're going to be accumulated by a professional money here, I believe, during the course of the front end of the year.
All right, Brian. Well, thank you very much. I wish, as always, we had more time, but we'll have to stop there. Brian Perry, BrianPerryInvesting.com, author of the 25% Cash Machine. Wish you a great holiday season, Brian, and hope to speak with you again soon. Thank you very much for unpacking all of that and joining us live here this afternoon.
Okay, Frank. Thanks very much, and have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, and look forward to speaking with you again, hopefully next week.
Headed to SoFi Stadium? Skip the traffic and ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express, your direct $2 base fare round-trip ride from the Culver City Transit Center at Westfield, Culver City. Buses run on weekend game days every 20 minutes starting 3 hours before kickoff, with return service beginning at the start of the third quarter. And guess what else? We're hiring. Join our team and help keep the community moving. Visit culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500 for info on your next ride to the game or maybe your next job.
Looking for the perfect gift for the soccer fan in your life? Visit store.ussoccer.com and shop official U.S. Soccer merch. Celebrate the season and show your U.S. Soccer fandom with a gift from store.ussoccer.com.
Hi, I'm Drew Barrymore, and I want to tell you how you can help to support the life-saving work of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. When you give, you're helping ensure families never receive a bill from St. Jude for treatment, travel, housing, or food, so they can focus on helping their child live. This holiday, help St. Jude give children the greatest gift, a chance at a lifetime.
This holiday, help St. Jude find more cures for more children. Donate now at musicgives.org.
Record-shattering week on Wall Street, but a pullback in the last day or so brings the Dow down 246 to 48,458 today, but still up 1.1% for the week, a week in which we saw the Dow hit a record high. The S&P 500 also hit a record high this week, but pulled back today by 73 points at 68.27, and the S&P 500 was down about a half point for the week. The NASDAQ sliding nearly 400 points today at 23,195. The NASDAQ gave back 1.5% for the week as money came out of the AI names. We see the yield in the 10-year note pop to 4.18%, even though the Federal Reserve lowered short-term interest rates this week by a quarter percentage point. The volatility index spiking 6% today. Oil hovering around $57.53 a barrel, despite tensions between the U.S. and Venezuela. We'll be talking more about that coming up with John KILDUFF in just a moment. Silver hitting a record high, close to $65 an ounce today. Yep, you heard me. Silver got close to $65 an ounce and pulled back more than $2, back to $62 and change. Gold also had a good day, right now hovering at around $4,330 an ounce, and platinum at $1,764 an ounce. Let's talk about the cryptos for a second. Bitcoin hovering just above 90,000 now. Ethereum at 3,086. Solana at 133. Doge down to 13 cents.
Headed to SoFi Stadium? Ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express. Just $2 base fare for a round trip from Westfield, Culver City on weekend game days. We're hiring too. Learn more at culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500.
Looking for the perfect gift for the soccer fan in your life? Visit store.ussoccer.com and shop official U.S. Soccer merch. Celebrate the season and show your U.S. Soccer fandom with a gift from store.ussoccer.com.
Check out the podcast that inspired Taylor Sheridan's latest series, Landman.
There's a stretch of road in an oil-rich region of West Texas. This region of West Texas, known as the Permian Basin, is in the midst of the biggest oil boom in history. This is a story of roughnecks, billionaire wildcatters, and wannabe dreamers. My name is Christian Wallace. From Texas Monthly and Imperative Entertainment, this is Boomtown.
Boomtown.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KABC. The U.S. and Venezuela continue to lock horns. We did see a Venezuelan oil tanker seized by the U.S. this past week. This escalation coming on the heels of a large-scale U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean as President Trump works to oust the Venezuelan dictator Maduro. The U.S. seizure of the Skipper, that's the name of the tanker, off Venezuela's coast this week, marking the first U.S. capture of a Venezuelan oil cargo vessel since sanctions were imposed on Venezuela in 2019. Washington has signaled more seizures are planned as part of efforts to choke off sanctioned oil flows. And the U.S. military presence in the Caribbean has grown as the president in recent weeks has discussed potential military intervention in Venezuela. In fact, we're following the latest headlines very closely this hour. Meanwhile, oil tanker movements into and out of Venezuelan waters have come to a virtual standstill. In all this, we're watching the price of oil hovering below $60 a barrel. Gas prices nationwide have come down significantly, but not so significantly here in Southern California, where we're basically paying the highest gas prices. Joining us live now to cover all of this, prominent oil industry analyst John KILDUFF, managing director at Again Capital and CNBC contributor, longtime contributor to this program. John, Thank you very much for taking the call this afternoon.
Thanks, Frank. It's great to be with you as always.
Wonderful to have you with us here, and one big headline after another again this week. First of all, zoom out and give us your view of what's developed this week and where things stand at this point.
Well, the situation in Venezuela has been on the cusp of something, rather significant for some time, especially with the U.S. troop buildup that we've seen. It appears imminent. We're waiting to see. I guess Maduro, as we know, turned down an exit package that would have removed him from power, but it's pretty clear that there's going to be more to come. This Venezuelan shadow fleet that you referenced, Frank, has been in operation for years now. That tanker that they seized was going to stop off in Cuba, dump off some oil there for them to help them subsidize, and then head off to Asia. So for the oil market, Frank, it's a double-edged sword. In the short term, that Venezuelan oil that continues to get out on the market by that shadow fleet is helping to keep a lid on prices. If we're going to lose it for a time, you could see oil prices stop the decline they've been in and go back over $60 a barrel before they recalibrate, because the future then would be very bearish for oil prices if we were to get Venezuela and its crown jewel and asset back online, back producing, because most of that oil, by the way, from Venezuela would come straight to U.S. Gulf Coast producers because they're built for that oil.
All right, bearish certainly for the oil industry, but great news for consumers. What are the possibilities here on the table? By the way, we're watching the latest reports here. President Trump again hinting at land strikes in Venezuela. Speaking at the White House today, the president said we'll start that on land too. It's going to be starting on land pretty soon. People are trying to interpret that, and so something could be happening this weekend. John, what are the possible scenarios here?
Well, obviously, Frank, I do not think that oil infrastructure would be hit, so we're not really necessarily worried about that in supply-wise in the oil market. I mean, obviously, the targeting is what's going to have to be closely watched. I mean, are they going for truly going for just narcotic operations? Are they going for Venezuelan regular army, military assets, or are they going for the top of the line? Do they go for Maduro himself? They could just pick him up and arrest him on some of these narcotic-related charges. So that would be a coup d'etat. That would see this thing potentially resolve itself, and maybe let us see the Nobel Prize winner, who was finally freed and able to speak this week as well, in the wings for Venezuela to take power, as she was duly elected, if you believe the monitors that we're trying to give that country a fair election.
On there live with oil industry analyst John KILDUFF. So we are watching things play out there. In the meantime, what are your thoughts about how the price of oil has remained below $60 recently for the most part?
Yes, Frank, I have to say it's interesting times, because there's a school of thought in the market right now that we're going to have an epic oversupply, a supply glut as we get into 2026. And it is a real possibility. However, I think there's been too much attention to it. You've already seen OPEC try to maybe correct course on their part. You're also seeing some of the increases in production for the United States also take a downward trek here a little bit. So things might not get as oversupplied as feared, but certainly we are looking at a very challenged oil price environment. But I will tell you, that's good for refiners, because they're translating cheaper crude into the various refined products, and it's also very good for consumers, that really who you should be rooting for, who are 2/3 of the economy. And as you're hearing, tougher economic times appear to be upon us a little bit, at least for a time. So a lower gasoline price would act as a tax cut, very stimulative. So getting Venezuela in order to bring this back full circle, and to know that the oil market would know that we get some stable supply from that sooner rather than later, would help that lower price outlook.
Big news this week at gas pumps nationwide, with the average price for gas down to $2.93 for regular, $3.79 for premium. Of course, it's a lot higher here in California, $4.55. The average price for regular here in the Los Angeles area, $4.95. The average price for premium, $5.07 for diesel. And it looks like a couple of refineries are set to close here in California soon. What's the outlook here for gas prices in California?
Unfortunately, Frank, this is not only your present, but it's your future. I mean, you're going to have worse stories because, as we saw as well, not only are the ones that are shutting down are already going to limit supply and limit capacity. California is becoming increasingly reliant on foreign sources, and I mean outside the United States, for supply, and that's only going to grow. Also, too, the remaining refineries in California have their problems as well at times. They have power outages, they have fires, explosions. It's just part of the natural process. It's a dangerous game. But that's only going to cause you to have more of these episodes where you're paying the $5 and $6 a gallon for a time as we move forward here. So it's a real problem that policymakers are going to have to address. There's talk of potentially getting a pipeline going from the U.S. Gulf Coast Refining Center out your way, reversing a couple of pipelines that exist right now. But again, it's going to take time, and it's going to take some pain at the pump, it sounds like.
All right. From an investment standpoint, in the oil patch, where would you be putting money now, or even taking it off the table?
Well, unfortunately, I have to say the story doesn't get all that great either, Frank, from another 1-2 punch sort of scenario here. Natural gas prices were expected to be a boon for the oil companies, and that dream has fizzled now that we've gotten some updated weather forecasts. We're just not going to have the demand. And so those prices have come back down. But having said that, I still say stick with the Exxons and stick with the Chevrons. Excellent choices, and they're going to pay their dividends. And the sort of event risks that we have to worry about in the oil market cover you when you have exposure to those. But I will say, I think the star of the lot these days, and we've been just talking about refiners, is Valero. I think that's a key one to have. They're in a great market position. The stock has done great this year already, and really the fortunes for refiners in the months and next year, as we go into 2026, is going to be a terrific outlook. So I think that's one that shouldn't be overlooked.
Terrific, John. Well, thanks very much for taking the call. We'll keep an open line to you following all these headlines here related to the U.S. And Venezuela. Prominent oil industry analyst John KILDUFF, managing director at Again Capital, CNBC contributor. John, we wish you and everybody there a wonderful holiday season, and we will be in touch. Thank you very much for taking the call this afternoon.
Same to you, Frank. Enjoy and be well.
Mottek On Money continues, 790 KABC. Happy holidays and good afternoon. As we just heard from John KILDUFF, prominent oil industry analyst, even if oil prices come down even more, it looks like California drivers will be paying more at the pump, as we're already paying the highest prices nationwide. Right now, the average price for regular gas in the country is $2.93 a gallon. It cracked below $3 a gallon on average this week, and premium now averaging $3.79 a gallon. But look at the prices we're paying here as you drive by those gas price signs. $4.55 the average price for regular here in the Los Angeles area. $4.95 the average price for premium, all of course significantly higher than the rest of the country's paying. Does that make electric vehicles still attractive? Let's bring in our go-to car expert now, Lauren Fix, who's joining us live here. Lauren Fix, co-host of the Drive Car Show syndicated radio program, as well as founder of Car Coach Reports on YouTube. And Lauren, it's always great to have you with us. What are your thoughts here as you hear about California gas prices, higher than Hawaii, by the way, which is in the middle of the Pacific Ocean? What are your thoughts about EVs for California drivers to address the all-important affordability issue these days?
Well, this is Gavin Newsom at work. He did say that they were going to raise the price of gas with a 65-cent gas tax. It's going to be higher also. Of course, all this is always passed on Friday nights when no one's paying attention. They're trying to get home and enjoy their weekend. And that's when a lot of this types of rules and policies pass. California is the highest in the country. There's areas of the country, believe it or not, that are below $2.50 a gallon. That's where it should be. But when you add all these taxes and additional fines and fees for California, because by 2030, when Gavin Newsom is out of office, they still are planning, and this current administration of California is planning on remaining with that EV mandate. Now, that may change depending upon who gets voted in as the next governor of California. That could easily be reversed. And there's lots of options out there, so pick your favorite person. But it's important to note that these high gas taxes cause people to leave the state. It also makes it unaffordable for people. So while people think, well, they'll just go buy an electric car, that may be fine. but gasoline vehicles are still selling better than electric vehicles. And as of the end of November, they're already down such a dramatic amount that there's less than 4% across the country in sales of electric vehicles. People don't want them. So there might be some good deals out there. But remember, the insurance is higher. The charging infrastructure is constantly an issue. And also keep in mind, you want to lease an electric car. Do not get caught into buying one. The reason for that is leasing it at the end of 3 or 4 years, you return it to the dealer and walk away. That is one of the smartest things you can do, because right now, according to IC Cars and Edmunds and everybody else that's out there, they're all saying that the resale of electric cars is upside down. In other words, you purchase it and you can't sell it. And that will hurt you in the end, because to give you an example, it doesn't have to be a Porsche. It could be a Hyundai. It could be a Ford. It could be any electric car, even Tesla. The used car market for those is so low. Now, you might think, well, then I'll just go buy a used one. True, you could save some money, but at the end of whatever time you own it, good luck getting rid of it. So unless you plan to drive it until it's no longer useful and then just taking it to a salvage yard, that's going to be your only option, because used EVs are even harder to sell.
Wow. What kind of depreciation do you see on the EVs out there?
Right now, we're seeing anywhere from 65 to 80%, depending upon what it is. So if you're looking at like a Hummer EV, they're really hard to get rid of. There's a full list at IC Cars. They put out a complete list. Tesla is going to be somewhere around the 60% range. Remember, people do like those vehicles, and they do sell their own vehicles, and they will do a lease now on used ones, which is a great way to save a few dollars. If you insist on an electric car, it works for you. You have the charging infrastructure. If you can lease a used car, it would only be from Tesla. It would not be from your regular car dealers, because they're going to want to sell those and get those off the lots. One of the biggest depreciations, believe it or not, is a Porsche Taycan, which is a wonderful little car, and it looks great and it impresses your friends. But the problem is getting rid of them at the end, and they're difficult. And of course, depending on where you live, and if you've got charging infrastructure, you live across the street from the Tesla diner that we were at, then it's easy. You plug in and you go home and unplug it when you're done. That doesn't happen for every single person. And remember that the charging is expensive, and you do still have to pay for it.
All right, and speaking of paying for it, the Federal Reserve lowered the short-term interest rates this week, which impacts consumer loans, including auto loans. How is auto loan financing looking nowadays?
It's gotten a little better. It's only a quarter point, so it's not a lot. But also note that that big, beautiful bill that was signed by President Trump on July 4th means that if you purchase a car, no matter whether it be electric or gas or hybrid, and its final assembly is here in the United States, you will be able to deduct your interest off your taxes. Now, I'm sure you can cover that in much more depth, because you're more heavy into the finance side than I am. But it's good to note that there's more money to be saved. And it's certainly something to think about with all these changes going on. And there's going to be more changes with the most recent Freedom Act that was signed by President Trump. You're going to see the price of used cars and regular vehicles drop in price somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000, and that should happen pretty soon.
Very interesting, and I know you flagged this interesting story on one of your YouTube reports. Looks like some cars might soon be getting their own new monitors, basically ankle monitors, so to speak.
Yes, it's a great way to put it, an ankle bracelet. Well, if you think about this, if you tend to be heavy-footed, you tend to speed a lot. Certain states are starting to crack down on that. Washington, Oregon, I know California is already talking about it if it hasn't already passed. As well as Arizona, they're going to start putting monitors on your car that limits how fast your vehicle can go. So that may think that's good, but if you're in an area where it's 60 miles an hour and your vehicle can only do 50, that can be dangerous to you and the people around you. So again, there's other things that they can do, but putting what they call governors, we used to call them governors back in the day, on your vehicle can cause for potentially a lot of issues. And remember, obviously, if you're speeding, you're going to get a ticket. And if you get a ticket, it's going to increase your insurance. So it's best not to speed.
All right, 26, just about here. Any other new cars getting your attention for the new model year?
Yeah, I just drove the 2026 Acura Integra. Beautiful car, reasonably priced, under $40,000. You get a four-door sedan that seats 5 people, reasonably priced, and a very fuel-efficient car that's sporty and fun to drive, which is really nice. We also drove the sister car, which is the SUV version of that, which is the Acura ADX. Very nice vehicle as well. all reasonably priced entry-level cars, and we're going to see a lot more entry-level vehicles coming in under $20,000 in the very near future.
Terrific, Lauren. Thank you very much. Have a great holiday season. Thanks always for taking the calls here. Lauren Fix, co-host of the Drive Car Show, syndicated radio show, as well as the founder of Car Coach Reports, live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KABC. Stay tuned now for the 790 KABC News Blitz with Randy Wang, and I'll be back with more at 4 Monday afternoon right here. Mottek On Money, 790 KABC.
Headed to SoFi Stadium? Ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express. Just $2 base fare for a round trip from Westfield, Culver City on weekend game days. We're hiring too. Learn more at culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500.